death and willing to die on our behalf. Most of the material in 2nd Isaiah is straightforward and easy to understand, this section. But when we come to the servant song, it's not quite as easy to grasp. Now, you might say we've had some good scripture here that was read, and we've had sort of an explanation and so forth. But what does this have to do with us? What does this have to do, the servant songs in the 21st century? Is there a message here for us?
We are continuing to bring the light to the nations.
Okay. Jane?
Well, I think it's still instructing us to bring God's word to the world.
Okay. Something that we still can use. These servants, who are the servants in our time? Can you name some of them? Of course, is going to come to your mind, ones that are famous, ones that we know about. Who could you mention would be definitely servants of the Lord?
Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa.
Larry. Great Larry.
All right.
Father Kaplan.
All right. Father Kaplan. Yes.
Sergeant Schreiber, who just died this week. But one of the things that this talks about in terms of like whether or not you're talking nations or anything else, it's really the theme of servanthood, and it kind of dovetails with something that somebody sent me a few weeks ago that basically said that every day you should make at least 3 people smile. And I thought about that. I've just been kind of pondering that. And of course, one of the reasons that we do a lot of ritual is we use ritual to sort of help shape our thoughts and our behaviors in a particular way. And how that sort of played out for me is, I don't know how many others, but certainly the last thing I do each day is my prayers type thing. And one of the things that I made as part of that is to try to consciously remember 3 people I made smile that day. Not with a joke, but with treatment of dignity or respect or something they weren't expecting. And to maybe think about that in terms of, if I can't remember 3 people that day, then that day was not a good day. And it helps, I guess, when you talk about holding up the light or being a light to the world. That's what is being a light, is those 3 people that you made smile will remember you, and they will remember what it is about you. And if they know you as a Christian, then that's what they're going to think about being a Christian means. So to me, this is a pretty powerful lesson, just in terms of thinking about our own personal responsibilities to really do that servant.
Right. And we don't have to be famous, each
Every
in our
person.
own way.
Right.
Think in our congregation, who are the lights and who are the servants in our congregation? I'd like to say all of you. You know, you think each and every one of you, the things that you do.
The one thing I got out of the study of Isaiah a long time ago was the professor taught us that don't put this word, it's in Isaiah, he took it from Isaiah 55. Don't put this word in a box. And then he had us make circles all around the box, you know, and bring the word out. Out to the nations. Let the light go out to the nations.
And it's easy to talk and say this, and then to put it in practice. And I like what Joe is doing, because he's trying to put this in practice. However, I do think we're probably giving out more light than you think in certain ways to certain people.
Aren't Christians meant to go and do likewise?
Right. We're supposed to anyway.
Well, try.
Try. That's right. It's interesting, as the book had said, one of the conundrums that we sometimes face as Christians today is when we hear a fellow Christian saying, well, the Lord told me to do this. The Lord set it upon my heart to act in a certain way. Or the Lord forgave me. And, of course, you don't argue with them about that. you know, how do you argue with someone who says, well, the Lord told me? You don't argue with that. And we shouldn't judge as to whether we think the Lord taught them or not. It is not for us to judge. However, it's easy to be suspicious when you look in the past. You think of the Crusades, the Inquisitions, the genocides, and that kind of thing, where they all said, the Lord told me to go out and kill everyone I can find, you know, that type of thing. So I think we have to be careful in this, not only as a nation, but as an individual. I had a little personal experience where I had a relative committed a white-collar crime. One of the first things he said was, well, the Lord forgave me. Well, that was kind of hard for me to stomach a little bit, you know, maybe they did, and I guess I was judging and I was angry and whatever and so forth. So, you know, how do you deal with this kind of thing? Because maybe what's in their heart or what they say is a reflection of their own feeling and not just that the Lord spoke to them. And I think of, who are those people up in Topeka, Westboro Church, or
Phelps.
the Phelps? I think they're always saying, the Lord told us to do thus and so, and you know, they're protesting out around the churches of fallen soldiers and so forth. So you get just a little bit suspicious. I mean, how do you feel about it? Have you encountered this kind of thing when someone maybe stopped you dead in the tracks and said, well, no, the Lord told me?
But that's where this box comes in, you know. You have to go outside that and ask him, you know, what else did the Lord, what else did the Lord do?
Oh, and what else did he say?
Has he talked to you recently? What else?
He said, you know, when I saved you, he said, then,
A theme of this lesson has to do, the word justice appears a number of times. And I was, as you were going through the lesson, I was kind of thinking about how that related to this other stuff. And to me, when somebody else, no matter what their faith is or who they are or what their station of life, when you make them smile, that almost is the measure of justice, because they have experienced you in a way that's non-judgmental, and that sort of represents being just. I mean, at the end of the day, in terms of what makes us have a Christian faith versus a Muslim faith versus everything else, has to do with that sense of what is it to be just? Well, it's to treat others with respect and dignity and to treat them the way you would want to be treated. So whatever it is that you do, when it brings forth a smile, you know you've been successful in expressing justice to me.
Yeah, you've done the right thing, that's right. And it is easy to judge. And so when we hear that type of thing, why, it does make us wonder. In 49:1, it said that God named him while he was still in his mother's womb. Now, if we are talking about an individual, that's understandable. If we're talking about a nation, how does that fit?